The Philippines' poverty rate drops to 9.7% in 2025, with 6.5 million Filipinos rising above the poverty line. PLDT and Smart Communications will block more than 100 websites for streaming videos of school shootings and other forms of extreme violence. Hong Kong's High Court convicts of inciting subversion two organizers of yearly Tiananmen Square commemoration vigils. U.S. Treasury Chief Scott Bessent says the U.S. will impose, quote, the toughest sanctions in history on Iran. And a federal judge cancels part of the conviction of a former Google software engineer who had been found guilty of stealing AI trade secrets. The Philippine Statistics Authority says the country's poverty rate dropped to 9.7% in 2025, with 6.5 million Filipinos rising above the poverty line. Compare this with 15.5% or 17.5 million Filipinos in 2023. However, many Filipinos remain vulnerable to economic shocks. Chief Economist Arsenio Balisacan says this is the first time that fewer than 1 in 10 Filipinos is living below the poverty line. He adds, reaching this milestone ahead of schedule demonstrates that expanding economic opportunities complemented by effective social protection can make a meaningful difference in people's lives. The PSA defines the poverty threshold as the minimum income or expenditure needed to meet basic food and non-food needs. These include housing, utilities, health, education, clothing, and transport. The World Bank estimates that around 28% of Filipinos live just above the poverty line, which leaves many vulnerable to price spikes, job losses, disasters, and other shocks. PLDT and Smart Communications announced they will block more than 100 websites found to be streaming videos of school shootings and other forms of extreme violence. PLDT Chief Operating Officer Butch Jimenez says the company does not tolerate such content and has decided to ban these sites preemptively. Jimenez says their networks will not be used as a channel for content that glorifies violence and puts our communities, especially our children, at risk. The blocking will occur at the network level, meaning such sites will be inaccessible to all PLDT and Smart subscribers. The list of blocked sites is expected to grow as other sites are identified through information provided by government agencies alongside PLDT's own monitoring. Hong Kong's High Court convicts two former leaders of a disbanded group that organized yearly vigils marking Beijing's 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown on pro-democracy protesters. Li Chok-yan and Chow Hang-tung were charged with inciting subversion of state power that carries punishment of up to 10 years in jail under China's new national security law. They were respectively the former chair and former vice chair of the now disbanded Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements of China. The judgment says it was the defendants' repeated use of the phrase "end one-party dictatorship" that violated the NSL, rather than other political actions or beliefs. The NSL was implemented in 2020. It significantly expanded the powers of both the Chinese and Hong Kong governments within Hong Kong. The former Hong Kong Alliance had led yearly commemorations of the 1989 crackdown for decades in Hong Kong until the enactment of the NSL. U.S. Treasury Chief Scott Bessent says the U.S. will impose, quote, the toughest sanctions in history on Iran. He suggests this move will lessen the need for new major military operations. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump's threat of economic warfare and warning of economic consequences against any country that provided any type of lifeline to Iran. But Bessent says details will come by next week. Oil prices rose to more than a 3-week high on Thursday, August 20, following these threats of financial penalties aimed at ending the nearly 6-month-old war that has stranded millions of barrels of Middle Eastern oil. Bessent tells CNBC, if you're doing the maximum economic pressure, then that means that likely there will not be a large-scale kinetic restart. He was referring to military force. The war has pulled in other Gulf nations and shocked markets as Iran strangled the Strait of Hormuz, where a fifth of global oil trade passes. The US and Iran have twice announced ceasefire deals in April and June, but both quickly fell through. A federal judge reverses part of the conviction of former Google software engineer Lin Wei-ding, who was found guilty earlier this year of stealing AI trade secrets to benefit two Chinese companies. U.S. District Court Judge Vince Chabria in San Francisco rules there isn't enough evidence Ding intended or knew his conduct would benefit the government of China. Chabria says evidence supported the guilty verdict on the theft of trade secrets. A Chinese national, Ding was found guilty in January after an 11-day trial of 7 counts of economic espionage and 7 counts of theft of trade secrets. He was accused of stealing thousands of pages of confidential information from Google. 3 weeks after the trial, Ding's lawyers filed appeals for his acquittal, arguing the Justice Department failed to prove the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Ding is scheduled to be sentenced on September 1, according to the court docket. And that's today's wrap. I'm JC Gutinga. Thank you for watching. Click the link below for the full story. For more updates, download the wRap.